Welcome to today's episode of CLCI Live, brought to you by the award-winning and ICF accredited school, Certified Life Coach Institute. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode.
Welcome. Hi, everyone. I feel like everybody's quiet and it's weird all of a sudden. Like I'm used to hearing noise from other people and it got really quiet all of a sudden.
There's some background sound going on too.
Before we get into our topic, friendly reminder, please, if you like this video, subscribe, like, share, and then also comment. We are live, so if you ask your questions, we'll do our best to answer them. And now let's talk about the topic, shall we?
This is
We shall.
Controversial Coaching 101. Clients who cry wolf.
Well,
Clients. That's what we call them. Clients.
Yeah.
Clients who cry wolf. Clients who may lie. Clients who extend the truth. Clients who may play victim. The victim card. To make you feel bad for them. What's the deal with them? Do we like them? Are we pro victim clients?
let's talk about crying wolf first. So let's talk about what we mean by crying wolf. How about that? Let's start with that
Okay.
before we delve into that loaded question. Anybody?
Well, so it goes back to the story, right? I mean, that's where it originates. Is the boy says, "There's a wolf," and the dad comes out and there's no wolf, and then eventually one day there's a wolf, and the dad's like, "No."
I don't believe you. And then what happens to
believe
the
you.
boy?
He gets eaten by a wolf.
He's
Poor
eaten by
little
the
boy
wolf.
gets eaten by a wolf. It's terrible. It's a very traumatizing story, actually.
That's what he gets.
Stories mess me up.
You know, it's how
But
the world used to be, Jen. That's how the world used to be. Boys just getting eaten by wolves left and right.
Mhm.
Wolves.
Either eaten by a wolf or you would fall down a well. Those are the only two.
I mean, things were crazy back in the day.
Do we stop and even ask, like, why was the little boy crying wolf? Maybe that's the most important part of the story.
He's
Probably
a
because
punk
his parents
kid.
were neglecting him and
lonely,
he just
right?
wanted a little
Lonely.
attention, but his parents ignored him all the time because they're probably fighting with one another and, you
Hey,
know, not, they
Brooke,
don't have
you're,
time for the kid.
Brooke, you're oversharing a little bit. You're drawing from your own personal experience. I see.
I know, I'm not.
Okay.
I was just, you know, conjecture.
Well, studies have shown, from what we have listened to and read, that playing the victim card has benefits.
Mm-hmm.
It makes people feel bad for you, gets you attention, even if you are not actually a victim. There's benefits to pretending you are.
Well, like a lot of the research that we did, it kind of they had a disclaimer, right? The disclaimer was, we're not talking about the victim that suffers, right? We're talking through these experiences that people are, in a sense, manipulating something in order to get attention, not something that truly happened to someone, right?
But how? So here's my question,
Yeah.
and it might be something we can't answer. But that if you are somebody who is behaving like a victim, living in this space, at what point does it become real for you? Right? Like on some level.
Exactly.
On some level, you've got to sell it. You got to start to live it and believe it, right? And so it's a weird space to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Jen, I see you thinking.
Yeah, Jen.
What I thought was so interesting was that one study, or maybe it was multiple studies that they had compiled, and they found that people with the same exact behavior, when polled, people would rate the one that they gave a victim story to as more morally good. So
Yeah.
that identity of a victim, it changed people's perceptions about them when they had the same behavior as someone else. They rated that person higher because they perceived them as a victim. That was fascinating to me.
So it's like if I took my phone and I gave it to somebody, and then I told you about that later, or if I said to you, my phone was stolen from me, for whatever reason, in either case. So if I took my phone and gave it to Anthony, right, I just gave it to him, and then I said later that no, Anthony stole my phone from me, or to a different group of people. In either case, it's me handing my phone is going away. There's nothing I'm doing to make me immoral or moral apart from in that moment telling you that story, right? But for whatever reason, people thought somebody who had been victimized was more of a moral human being, which I think is so weird, because
It is so wild.
I would find, I don't know, I would almost think the opposite sometimes too. Like I
You're a victim of anything, you're an immoral person.
Well, I
no.
think if we're talking about a chronic place, like if you kept saying that and you kept doing it with the same sets of people, I think at some point that changes, don't you think?
That's a good point.
Maybe, but we're talking about the initial reaction that people have towards a victim of something. They view that person as more moral, or more good.
Maybe it's a basis of comparison, because somebody's doing something bad in that story, I automatically look better because there's somebody else who's obviously doing worse things than I am in that story, right?
Doesn't that go back to bonding over trauma too? I think we've all,
trauma bonding,
traumatized. Yeah, exactly. So you've got something that you can immediately and I think pretty easily connect to in that story, which maybe not necessarily makes you, I guess, overtly moral, but definitely makes you a little bit more human in that scenario, I think.
If you so that's an interesting point. So like if I'm empathizing, right, I'm running it through a filter, right? I can relate to that. Oh, that must have been, and I'm running it through a selfish filter to some degree. And that automatically makes me think of you as a better human being because I'm relating to you. I'm a good and moral person. So you must be as well. I mean, maybe that is something that goes on. I just think that I agree with you, Jen. It is really fascinating that happens, and I'm not sure why, but it definitely does provide fuel for the fire for somebody who is fed by being a victim and gets that treatment, that extra whatever it may be. It might affirm victim behavior. Right.
I took a course, I don't know, it was a number of years ago, probably at least 10 years ago, if not. It was a coaching course that was not a coaching course. It was a therapy course, but they were calling it coaching. And that's what they had us do, was go over trauma stuff with a partner who was going over their trauma stuff. And it irritated the crap out of me that that's what we were doing. I was like, this is not coaching and I don't want to do this. I'm done with this. So it can, at some point, when you really take ownership of the process and what you want to achieve, at some point that can switch. But that begets, right? If you're in that space, you're going to beget that story. That's part, I think, why we talk in our coaching program that same story is not appropriate for the most part in that scenario.
One of the things I think, though, that we could also call this is learned helplessness.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely something that we deal with as coaches.
Yeah.
I think that another word for victim is learned helplessness. It's essentially somebody who feels as though they aren't capable of helping themselves or something is happening to them. They're helpless to
out of control of it.
Get out of their own situation or get it. And so they're telling others about it to essentially be rescued or saved, or I mean, there's a different piece there, right? So I don't think that we can just outright, say that this is a everybody who cries wolf is this is a fully manipulative or cruel or bad trait. Honestly, I think on another level, we can call this victimhood, learned helplessness. Truthfully,
About the victimhood, where there is a contract that has assumptions in it that aren't spoken, and a person may have assumed that there's parts of a contract that have not been obligated. There was an example that I can't remember if it was a video.
it was like a mother
Yeah.
she has sons.
Yeah, and she's like, well, and she's saying this to herself as an adult, and the sons are children, I'm going to take care of them, and because of that, they owe me, and
they can never leave my
they
side.
can
They
never
have to
leave
be
my side.
here. They have to be here for me always.
And
Because
so
I
then
raised-
later on, when the sons are adults and they want to, go to college or go get married or something, she's like, you can't do that. I'm a victim. You're leaving your poor mother. I took care of you and spent all this money on you, and now you're leaving me?
And using this guilt,
You're playing the victim on a contract that the sons never agreed to.
all I want to say is those poor sons have probably got some problems on their own. Let's just talk. Let's just should be seriously. Like,
I mean, it's
raised like they're going to be some serious mama's boys if that's how it's going to be. Like they can never leave my side. Like, I don't know what parent isn't raising their kid to be independent, but I know that this happens. I know it's real, and I know that's a thing. But like, can you imagine? Like, I mean, I know it exists. I absolutely do. It's not fair though to that kid. They didn't have a say in that. I could never have agreed to that plan, right?
But it creates a victim too, doesn't it? The victim creates the victim.
Well, yeah, it's a cycle, right? Because now, but there's a difference though. The son is truly a victim in this point, right? A victim of her manipulation, right? Of her guilt. And has to come to a point where they're going to have to set boundaries and stand up and do all these things.
Let's put that woman now, that hypothetical woman, in the coaching seat. She's your guys' client.
She's an empty nester. She's going to an empty nester coach.
And she feels like she's the victim of her sons who are abandoning her, when she spent so much time and energy and resources raising them, and now they're throwing it away, leaving her.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to that?
She's coming to you and saying, she's coming to the coach, and what is she working on with the coach at that point? She's saying she's got to on some level be in
how do I convince my sons to stay?
Well, that's not a coaching model.
Yeah. Right, yes.
Coaching model is going to be,
Okay, so let me rephrase this then. I want to work on convincing and persuading my sons to stay, so that I'm not alone.
We can't coach on that. We can't control other people.
but what she could be there to do is to say, okay, I'm here to figure out what am I going to do with my life now that my sons have left me and I'm completely alone.
Mm-hmm.
And then what can come up you're going to hear probably in that is, well, I don't know what to do. They're supposed to be here. They were supposed to be here, and now I'm alone. You're going to start to hear the wolf
like
cry,
the accusations, right? And the wolf cry.
And that might come out, right? That's I don't know what my next steps are. I'm completely alone. My sons just left me. And then this might become a thing that comes up, and you're hearing more than once. And this is the wolf cry, right? That's what that is. That's what is that she is saying something that she isn't really a full truth, right? So how do you handle that as a coach, right? That's a delicate space to be in.
Mm-hmm.
I think there could be a lot, and this is the what if game, and there's nothing tangible, but it could be the space of having her to define even what her abandonment is. It could be having her define what she wants from the relationship. It could be defining who she is all by herself and how she interacts with society from there. I mean, there's just so many different angles that are possibilities.
I don't even know if that's the first step, though. It's like probably as a coach asking, okay, what do you want to do in this session, though?
I mean, that's going to
What
be
would you
every
like to
session. Yeah.
Yeah. Because then it sort of otherwise might lead into like a pity party or talking about abandonment, which might be like that might be a therapy space, not a coaching space. So maybe to get it on board to coaching, let's talk about what we can do in the session.
Mm-hmm.
The other
Work on.
The other example in this too that they gave was, well, what if she has two sons, one son stays and one son leaves, so she's got her good son that stayed and the bad son that's left, right? And so now she is saying, isn't, to her present son, your other, he is so bad for leaving me. He can't believe he would do that to me. I can't believe those, and I can see absolutely things like that coming up in a coaching session when somebody is saying, I can't believe somebody so-and-so would do this to me. I can't, or I can't believe this happened to me. And then they would say, maybe follow that up with, I don't know what to do next now that this has happened. I'm helpless to help myself, right? Now that this has happened. And that's where we use that as a coach. We come into it as a coach. What do we do in that situation?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I start by poking holes, right? Like, let's see which one is going to give a little, just by simply breaking down the story into like what is true, what is circumstance, and what is meaning that she's giving it. So I typically would just start asking a lot to simplify single thoughts. And then, is that true? What's true about that?
Or what are the other possibilities even?
Right. She may, with some of those questions, at least start to think in a different way. She's not probably going to attach to that right away, but she's going to possibly entertain the possibility that something outside of her story could be true. Maybe. And she may not. She may need a few sessions of just having space held for her before she's even feeling safe enough to allow holes to be poked in her story.
Yeah, rapport and connection is going to be a big deal in this space.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of things, the other thing that comes up to me in this is that reframe, right? That being capable of looking at the situation a different way. And I think that what that means for us as coaches is while we do poke holes, we also have to ask about the wolf, right? We have to, if our client is coming in and crying wolf, we can't go, there is no wolf. We have to be curious about the wolf, right? So, oh my goodness, tell me more about that. Where did you see the wolf? What color was it? Where is it? Wherein we can start to accumulate that information and learn more about the situation. In order for us to even do a reframe or poke those holes, we have to first sort of believe the story, don't we? I could imagine that being tough.
I don't know that we have to believe the story, but we do have to believe our client, right? And they believe the story.
Right. We believe that the client believes what they're telling us.
So explain the difference to me.
It doesn't matter if I believe it or not. I don't have to have a belief that there was or was not a wolf. The client has the belief, whatever attachment to the wolf, and that's what we'll investigate.
So
this wolf we're talking about, the story might involve other people who have other perspectives on the same situation. It's not my job to fully believe 100% my client's side of the story, but it is my job to listen to what my client is saying and, think that they're coming to me with, I forgot the word. They're coming to me with their own best interest in mind, and that they're telling their side of the story honestly.
So that could
Even
be
if that's not the objective side of the story.
easily said, right? But I can imagine that we are sitting and across from our clients, and we have bullshit filters going off, right? BS filters, sounding alarms in our heads. How do we manage that as a coach? How do I not? Can I truly go set that aside?
Yeah.
How do you manage that? Like, if you have somebody sitting across from you and you're like, this is total BS, I know it is. Like, it's
Jen, when you mentioned that you wanted to poke holes and you sort of explained your way, I can imagine a coach being like, I'm going to poke holes in their story to try to catch them in a lie. That's my intention as a coach.
No, the intention would not be to catch them. The intention would be to show them what's true, because the truth is what's going to serve them.
I can imagine, though, that a coach would want to catch them in a lie, though.
So it's not a true. To me, it's not a true. It's not true or false. It's an opportunity to have a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And in a different perspective, all perspective, if I own it, is true, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I can't say my perspective is true and yours is false. It's going to be what perspective is he or she trying to gain from our coaching experience today? And going back to Anthony's point of, based on what you're sharing about this wolf, what would you like to leave here with today from our coaching session? What do you want to take with you? What do you want to tangibly adjust? Correct. I'm not correct. I use the wrong word. But you know what I'm saying? What do they want to, from this scenario, where do they want to go from here?
I can imagine this client saying, I don't know, I just want to feel better about this. That's
What's
my
feeling
goal.
better? Then we go down that path. What does it mean to feel better, right? So you just continue following that lead of the client and then come back. So you want to feel better. When you think of the wolf and feeling better, even by the end of our session, what does feeling better today mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think when I say truth, what I mean is, if this person has a story about the big bad wolf, maybe there's room for this person to realize, yes, there's a wolf, but the wolf isn't out to get her. So maybe the son isn't doing whatever he's doing to harm her. He's doing what he's doing for him. And is there space in her perception for that to be a possibility?
In the scenario, I think that is definitely a possibility, but it's still a form that what I read in that article felt like no matter what, it was going to feel abandonment unless the son came back to her.
Mm.
That's the feeling I got from the article.
Right.
So in that case, then what is the options? What are the options? What do you want to feel? Well, I want my son back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What does that mean?
What about when the person or persons who are crying wolf are in the same room and there's two victims involved? I can see this come up with relationship coaching.
Yeah.
Where me and my partner are sitting in a room and I'm the victim of them and they're pointing the finger at me. No, I'm the victim of them. And we're both maybe trying to get the coach to take my side and feel pity for me and disgust towards the other person. Does that tend to happen in relationship coaching?
All the time. All the time. The pointing fingers, wanting to have somebody on their side. But whether we're doing couples or individuals, it is just about sharing their perspective and what they're, again, same question behind it is, what do you want to accomplish today? what is the goal for today, and what's the bigger goal for, the tomorrow? We could possibly discuss that. Barbara DeAngelis, I mentioned in their chats before, she was back in the 80s, 90s, where she had a workshop for relationships, making love work. One of the things that she called it the unspoken rule that you were mentioning before. A lot of the times couples come in, if he or she does that one more time, I'm just going to scream, but the other person doesn't know that they're doing that. So in that victim or in that crying wolf, somebody can make their situation worse when it's not as bad, really, whereas the other one could be bad and they're lightening it because they don't want the drama attached. So there's both sides of that wolf crying that can be from a relationship. It takes a little time to unpack that stuff.
It also reminds me of Byron Katie's The Work a bit, which is that, is it true? Can you absolutely know that it's true?
Mm-hmm.
How do you react when you believe that thought? And then how would you be without that thought?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a very sort of powerful tool to utilize in this space of this crying wolf, or this, victimhood or learned helplessness is really bringing in to that perspective. Because what does that do when we ask those questions? What does that do for our client?
Gives them ownership.
And what happens when we have ownership? We're not helpless.
We can make changes.
We're empowered.
Yeah. But somehow that learned helplessness has been reinforced. That video that you've shared with us, Jen, it just really brought home how quickly that learned helplessness, that victim thought can happen.
Right.
Which video? I missed it.
So they're in a classroom, and it's two sides of the room, and they don't know it, but either side has different words, and one side is really easy and the other side is really hard. And so the teacher says, raise your hand when you're done. And the easy side is like, and the other side's like, what? Like, because they have really hard words. And so by the third word, the hard side has given up. They don't even try, and everyone has the same third word. So they could have gotten it. They just decided that they couldn't because of the learned helplessness, because they were perceiving that they were failing. And that they said, when they asked them, how did you feel? They were like, I was confused. I felt stupid. I didn't understand. I didn't think this was possible. Like, they were upset. And so they learned how to be helpless and not answer a word they could have answered.
Anthony, I see your brain working.
I was gonna say something stupid. I was gonna be like, they sound like losers.
Oh my god.
The kids.
No, I was. Yeah, don't ask me what my actual thoughts are. So, with that sort of
That'll
learned
teach you.
helplessness, so we're talking a lot about people who are victims, and we're linking it to the idea of learned helplessness. What about people who are victims who seek justice? Like, I want justice and retribution done so that my victimhood is validated and it's right. So maybe in this scenario, my teacher was an asshole and he did a study on me that I didn't like. It made me look and feel stupid. I want to get even with him, or I want justice to be done or retribution to happen to him. That's what my goal is for this coaching session.
What does justice look like at that point?
Yeah.
He's humiliated and he's made to look stupid.
So now we have to humiliate the teacher.
So he knows what I felt.
Oh man.
But this is okay, what Anthony is talking about is kind of put together and made up, but there's lots of this going on. There was a controversy at a school where a professor showed pictures that she let everyone know on the art, in her art class, that she was going to show these. And they basically, some of them decided that she needed to be fired, that they were the victim of her really, in the end of it, being uneducated and how it would impact them. So this is a real life scenario that you're talking about, Anthony, when you're talking about how people feel and the justification that they feel on how that has impacted them.
Yeah, because clients might have different views of what justice is. Like some might have a more restorative view of justice when they're the victim. Like, I just want whatever was taken to me to be given back so I can move on with my life. That seems a little bit easier to work with than retributive justice, where it's like, no, eye for an eye. I want that person to, feel retribution for what they did to me, even if it's, seemingly small stuff to you as the coach. Like if I was the student in that classroom, or maybe like I'm working with the coach.
Like truthfully, like I think, okay, so I'm a true victim of a violent crime, and am I ever going to get like true to God retribution? No, right? Not going to be. Nobody's going to do to that person what was done to me.
Okay, but let's take my example though. I want my teacher to feel embarrassed the same way I felt embarrassed.
I had a whole fix the situation though. You already felt embarrassed. What does it change?
So I had a point though that I was going to bring up, and mind you, what happened to me, he went to jail, but after that everything was out of my control. And what I didn't realize that the impact it was going to have on me when he was released from jail, and the impact it was going to have on me when my restraining order went out, and how that was going to affect me emotionally, and how frustrating it was for me when I went and said I want to renew my restraining order, and they said they can't unless a threat against me has been made. And talk about a situation where I feel like I have very little control and I have very little support as a victim. But I actually did coaching in this space. I actually did. And I spoke to people where it was about, okay, what do I have to do to feel safe and move forward with all of these things that are truly and actually out of my control? So I'm not crying wolf, right? But it can make you feel that way to some degree, that you want to renew a restraining order, and they're telling you can't unless there's a threat made. It's already, it's been happened. I can't do that to him. That's going to make him a victim kind of by doing it, because it's not fair to him for me to want that to happen. But it didn't feel that way for me, right? So how do I move through that? And I had to do a lot of work in that space, if I'm honest. And it was about deciding that I wasn't going to be scared, essentially, and taking the steps to do that. And how was I going to do that? And deciding that I wasn't going to live my life in fear, and taking the steps to actually be able to do that. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't instant. It took time. But definitely felt like I was in a situation where I could see. I mean, I was a true to God victim, but I'm not anymore at that point. And in the eyes of the law, I'm not. So I have no recourse to keep myself safe. And that was a very scary place. But you could say I was crying wolf. Well, nothing's happened to you. Well, it did. But I had to let go of that and figure out how to move forward. I don't know. I feel like I talked a lot there, but just.
But I think that is probably true of most people who are in that learned helplessness or in that victim mindset. I don't think that's. I mean, there may be, the outliers, but in that normal bell curve, there's the average person who has had stuff happen to them. And can any one of us here cry wolf? Sure we can. If we feel impacted, we're going to cry out something. But it's not. The difference is, I think we want to do something about it. We don't want to stay stuck in that place. I think that's the difference, is when you want to not be there and be in a healthier mindset.
And to Anthony's point, sorry to go back to Anthony, for that person, and it probably wouldn't be the kid that wants to humiliate the teacher. It'd probably be the parent that wants to equally humiliate the teacher. And at what point is that parent manipulating that situation? Like, I mean, it's a weird,
Exasperating it. Mm-hmm.
right? Or exacerbating it, not being productive.
Let me reframe this in a way then. If I was the parent and I feel that my retributive justice is maybe speaking in public about how this teacher makes children feel embarrassed or unsafe in a classroom setting. Could that be a way of retributive justice where me, and by proxy my child, is a victim? I want to either put out on a Facebook post or maybe the newspaper, local newspaper, things like that, to both publicly shame, cancel the teacher, or
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can't say whether that's proper retribution or not. But to bring it back into the coaching space, what I can do as a coach is talk them through if that is the solution for them, and make sure they're not breaking any law, right? Like not
slandering them.
We're not like, probably subtly make sure that whatever we're coaching on is staying within the bounds of our legal law options, or at least reminding your client to do the same. I don't know. Can we do that? Can we remind them? How do we deal with that? Right. But we might be working with that parent, let's say, and they feel slighted in this situation. They come in, I want to work on this today. Why? Because I'm very upset. I want to work on how I need to deal with this and how I need to get through this. And it might be a situation where you're coaching that parent on how to manage whatever they need to manage with regard to that student going back into that classroom, or how they're going to handle this relationship with that teacher. I could see that being a very much, if I'm a parent who has a coach, absolutely being an organic conversation that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa, you look like you're thinking.
I am. I'm thinking of a personal situation with a bully.
Keep asking when we're having personal thoughts that we don't want to share. Darn it.
A bully at my granddaughter's school, and how do we help both the granddaughter and the bully get the help that they need? It's a conundrum.
Yeah.
And the parent
Conundrum.
Yeah.
Go on. This bully's, I'm assuming, also a child.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'll stop making threats then.
Parents.
Yeah. I went down the slippery slope of, my own experience.
Beating up the parents.
Yeah, fun parents.
That's a solution.
We saw that in a show. Yeah.
We just saw that in a TV show not too long ago. It was True Detective. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of a shift in the topic. I mean, it's the topic, but it's a new direction if you're open to it.
Yeah.
No.
Of course.
Yeah.
We love it.
So the way that I notice victimhood shows up in coaching with people I coach the most is they're a victim of their circumstance.
Mm.
I see that most often. And so I'm wondering, what is it for you guys?
I
Is it that?
agree with you. I also see a victim of themselves.
Yeah, I think that's the bigger one, honestly, because they continue it.
Similar to the example I gave about the mother when her son's like, she had a contract that had baked in assumptions. What I tend to see is that clients make contracts or will say things to themselves that they're not realistically going to do, and then when they fail to meet up to those expectations that they set, then they're the victim and they can't do anything right, or they can't get things done,
Right.
or they don't know why they are like this way.
It gives them permission to beat themselves up, right?
Yeah, and then feel helpless to continue trying to improve because they look towards the past and say, well, I wasn't able to do any of this before. I'm just going to keep doing the same thing I'm going to always keep doing. So that's what I've typically seen. But what do you mean more about circumstance, Jen? Like outside circumstances?
You just nailed that, though. That was fantastic. Like nail on the head right there.
So Anthony?
Yeah, well, his point was like, I was like,
yeah,
man,
I mean, I always slam dunk it, but
yeah, that was.
Yeah, no, that was a really good point, though. That clients show up as a victim of themselves. Yeah, definitely, and a victim of their past. That's a huge one. For me, I guess what I'm talking about as far as victim of circumstance, it's they're speaking, and I mean, this is typical. There's nothing wrong with this. This is typically how the brain is wired. They're speaking as if, you know, it's happening to them. They're not owning their choice point. They're not owning what is possible, what else is possible. They're looking at, I can't, when all we have to do is pivot to look at, I can, and it opens up like a whole new world of possibility. So I just see that frequently, and it, you know, it's actually fairly simple to coach on, because it's just asking into it in a way where they start to see, oh wait, I do have responsibility. Oh, I did make a choice. Oh yeah. I mean, they're just starting to assess their story about I'm a victim of circumstance a little differently. And then they usually move into more of an empowered state pretty organically, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think you also, I mean, there's two thoughts I have going on. One of them being, this is also tools used in a space of forgiveness. And I think we can use them in a space to forgive ourselves. And that's like being capable of forgiving the things that we do, having empathy for ourselves and our actions, and then setting realistic goals, taking realistic steps. And I think the other thing that comes to mind is that feeling of ownership. I think a lot of times when people, what you're saying, they feel like they're a victim of circumstances. The truth of the matter is what they're not doing is taking ownership of choices they have made to put them in the situations they are in, or to just keep them from progressing. A simple thing I think of like this is, you know, there was for a long time what I thought I wanted to do this thing where I was going to, I used to make haunts and scare people, and I couldn't do it. Wasn't the right situation. All of these things. The truth of the matter, I always could have. I just had to pull the trigger and take the steps. But there was a lot of things in my life that were preventing me, that making me really, truly not want to do it. And I finally faced that. I had the opportunity. It was right there. And I went, this isn't what I want. Mm-hmm. And I became okay with that. But I was telling myself the story of it wasn't time yet, but the truth of the matter, it wasn't what I wanted yet. Mm-hmm. It wasn't what I wanted. And it's not what I want. It might change one day, but right, it's not. And I'm okay with that. And I can own that. But I think a lot of times, and that's what that situation where that client comes in saying they want something, and then they find out that they truly want something else completely. Yeah. And I think that can be a very common thing that happens, where we say, I can't do it. But the truth of the matter is we've been putting our own blocks in our way so that we don't have success. And so it becomes, are we okay with not having that success and pivoting a new way? Or is that something we really can't live without? And if so, what are the steps to do that? And how do we stop getting in our own way? It's kind of a combination of both.
Yeah. Good point. Mm-hmm.
This is all well and good with people who, believe themselves to be victims. We also listened to a Hidden Brain episode of people who just flat out lied.
Right, that was crazy. But let's not go into lying too much, because that's our topic for next week. So I don't want us to go too far down the lying rabbit hole. But yeah, My
was
goodness, I could not
crazy.
believe
That was very entertaining, that one. I mean, they all are entertaining, but that one was really.
the story of the guy who just pretended to be a different human being. Have a
So
whole
let's go
past.
into what the two scenarios were. One was it's a gay man and then a child in Mexico, and he lied and pretended to be of Jewish descent so he could play that victim card so he would not be bullied, and then later used it to his advantage to have academic success, things of that nature. And he was not Jewish at all. And he had this whole elaborate backstory. The other one was a group of girls who, when they were teenagers and went to an amusement park, one of their friends pretended to be mentally disabled, and they went the whole 9 yards. This girl, one of the girl was an actress, and she was pretending to do this, and finally pressured the park employees to like give them a pass to go to the front of the lines. And then afterwards, they started to feel bad about it. But
You
the
know
whole
that
time they're having a great
they
time.
didn't feel bad till like their mom or somebody went, "What did you do?" And then they're like,
I was trying so hard to just like listen to these two stories without judgment, and I found it very hard.
It was
I
really
could
hard.
feel myself leaning towards judgment.
Me too, and I was good on that. The host of
The
that
host.
for not showing judgment, right,
Yeah.
and not asking around, that remaining very neutral. Like great coaching skills there, like right.
Yeah.
He was literally just asking them about their experience and not.
Well, then he later then goes like, "We're gonna next look at the psychological traits of these people who do this," and then turns out they're all psychopathic, narcissistic.
No.
There was
But-
one time when he asked a question to the guy who pretended to be Jewish, and the guy answered him, and he didn't give an answer that made any sense. And the host was like, "I'm still not clear on why you did that." It was so good. It was so like it was a coaching moment, but he stayed in complete just neutrality, no judgment, just curiosity. I'm still not clear on why you did that.
Yeah.
And the guy had to say something else. It was good.
So what if like you get a client who's like, maybe they're out with it. They're not lying to you, the coach, but they're like, "Hey, I'm in a situation where my life that I'm telling people is a lie, and I'm crying wolf, and I need to get out of it, and I don't understand why." That might be a moment for me where I'm like, this is like a therapy referral. I can't really get into the psychological reasons why.
Well, I mean, I think if we're talking about the why you're doing it, but as a coach,
Well, yeah.
as a coach, I could say, okay, so what are the steps for you to get to start telling the
To
truth?
stop lying.
Like, we're not getting into the why you did this, the passing judgment. We're asking, okay, let's work forward. What has to happen for you to stop lying, living a lie?
Mm-hmm.
And that can happen in a coach. I mean, that can absolutely happen. I mean, one of the examples given we talked about last week, that gentleman that came forward and said, "I have a wife. I'm sleeping with my male coworker. This isn't a problem for me, but I need to manage my time." I mean, that guy that's something else, right? But truthfully, it's kind of a situation where I would rather truthfully work with the person that has the desire to be honest 100 times over, right? They've realized it and they would like to be honest. But we're
There's
not
also-
going to ask.
An additional.
We can be very tempted as a coach to ask why, but that's not what we do, right?
For the most part, no, unless it's to support the client in some.
The client's progress forward.
Yeah.
So we're not going to ask why they did it. We're going to ask why they want to change. Right? That's the
Yeah.
big difference there.
Yeah.
Wouldn't from an
There's
outside-
also the story. You know, when we're in coaching, some of the clients sometimes will answer the question with the correct answer, the what should be said versus what they really are. And usually in that moment, until you get to know your client more and, you know, the patterns start surfacing, you know, then you challenge, that's where you can challenge, you know, I think that's the right answer, but what is really your answer? And that can create a whole different dynamic as well.
that's where that dig comes in. I think that's so important. We can recognize when a person's in their head, right? And they're giving you an answer that is not a truly heartfelt answer, that true emotional answer. And that's that moment where when I do that, or we all do it, well, what does that give you? What does that give you? What does that give you? And you keep sort of asking the same question until they get out of their head and they move to that emotional place. Or what is that doing for you? How will that make you feel? And start to move them from that head-centric, this is what I should be saying, to the, oh my goodness, this is what I'm actually feeling. And really starting to tap into that emotion. We learn to do that as coaches, to hopefully move our client from the head-centric space to that, oh wait, this is my emotion, this is what's going on, that's that deeper coach the person, not the problem sort of thing, right? That deeper dig. Which I think a lot of times our clients are saying, I think I don't know. They may not know, but that's truly like a big learned helplessness moment, isn't it? That's a big, I don't know. Yeah.
You had to take your best guess when they say, I don't know. Well, if you had to take your best guess, because it takes a little bit of pressure off, because the word no can be, that can be charged. That can have meaning behind it. Like maybe they don't know, but what's your best guess? Then they might take a shot.
It's the experiment we can work with. Having the fact we're not secure a lot of the times in knowing that.
Right. Yeah. Jerome, were you going to say something at some point?
I was, but you guys killed it for me. I was going to say that from an outside perspective, wouldn't it seem a little crazy that someone...
Oh, boo-hoo, victim. We killed it for you.
Well, I mean, killed it in a positive manner. I don't mean like, no, I'm not playing victim here. You guys crushed it is what I should say. I was going to say, from an outside perspective, doesn't it seem a little crazy that someone would come in as a client and then just kind of self-sabotage, in a way, the session by not, giving you, I would say, answers that would help progress the session. And then I was going to ask, well, why that would be the case when we see this come up so often, why that would be the case. And Brooke and Lisa pretty much explained exactly why that might be the case.
I had a parent and a child come in, and I just had gotten the child to open up and start sharing more depth, to our conversation. Before it was a get to know you. And everything that we had just accomplished in that session, we were talking about sabotage earlier. The parent came in and sabotaged the whole thing.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So why do they do that? Because someone has their belief system and they believe their belief system is accurate, that there is no other possibility, that it must be this.
They don't know what they don't know.
Or they're not open to knowing,
in
a different way.
Another possibility.
So they're not going into the coaching session with good faith then? Like with a genuine interest to improve themselves. Really,
it could be a poke the bear moment, though. They might have a giant blind spot or a
It could be.
spot.
It totally could be.
It could be something they're not willing to go there. It's the poke the bear. Like, if they're not ready to open up to that truth or reality or alternate reality or possibility, you might hit a wall and not get past it, right? Not be able to. And that, I know I've had moments with clients where, to me, I see the big red blinking sign, but they're just not getting, like, it's like, and it's like they're just not willing to open up to that part. And I feel like, okay, I'm asking, okay, maybe if I ask, I've done this and I know it's not the right thing to do. Let me share with this. This is not the right thing, but I'm like, I see it. It's clear. Maybe if I ask this way, or if I ask this, it will be clear to them, and it doesn't happen. And then eventually I just have to go, okay, that's not what we're not going to go there today. That's not what
the cool thing, though, is because you did notice it, that means there is a chink to the armor, and at some point they're going to notice it and be open to that possibility conversation.
But I've had that where I felt like we were dancing around an obvious thing, and they're just never gonna. It's just, I'm like, you don't see it, you know. But I'm like, okay, I'm not. It's not. You're not willing to get ready to go there. You're not ready to see. Maybe it's something I don't know. Maybe there's a picture I don't see. So I'm gonna let that go, and explore the fact and be in their world and be in their space with them.
Yes. Or what about this? What if you just say, I feel like we're dancing around something? What do you think about that? Is that?
It's a possibility, but you're going to get feedback from the client in some fashion. Until they're ready, they're not ready.
Right.
Say no.
Until this client decided that they were going to come clean on how they were really not involved in the relationship with their spouse, until they were ready to let that drop, they already knew that they weren't willing to work on the relationship with their spouse. But they finally, probably after 6 sessions, that's what I did, like what you guys are talking about, you and Brooke. I'm like, I'm missing something. And that's what I did. I'm missing something. I don't, help me understand what I'm missing. And that's when he finally dropped it.
I think that's fair, because it does feel like, if me as a coach, if it feels obvious to me, but that client is not speaking it, this thing that feels like it should be obvious, there is something, I would say there's probably not being shared or not being, I think that is, and we can't say that consistently, but I think in a lot of cases, in my experience, that is what it is. It's that it's a door that's closed that they're not willing to walk through yet.
Yeah, that can be scary. Oh, it happened. My computer just kind of went blank for a second. I said, that can be scary. I don't know if my audio went down, but that can be scary, you know, to admit, especially if there's not a lot of rapport built just yet. That can be scary to admit something that,
Yeah, it's not usually going to happen in that beginning when you're just, that rip that Band-Aid off typically doesn't happen. It now and again will, but mostly it takes time.
I think partially too, it was in the specific incident I'm thinking of, it was being recorded, and it was being recorded for the sake of ICF. And I think had that not happened, had we had true, the walls are up, and this is a truly safe space, I think there may have been a more willingness to go there. But in this specific incident, and I think we did end up going there when we weren't recording. I'm almost certain we did. And I think that is part of the reason that in this moment I was like, it's okay, letting it go, like not gonna bring it up in the session, not gonna, and then later on the walls were able to come down when the client felt safer.
Yeah. And sometimes that's it too. It's safer, different mindset, different way.
Well, and there's different things that will make our clients feel like they are safe enough to share and not safe enough to share.
And just frankly, time, a lot of different, Yeah.
It can be the day. It can be, there's a number of things that can happen where they're just not in that ready to go there. And it took, I to just go, okay, putting it in the basket, setting it aside, and moving to the next thing, right? Staying in their world and in their space. And I think all of that applies to the crying wolf, right? It's that, why is that kid, crying wolf?
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
How is that serving them?
He's not willing to share right now. So, and now he's dead. So, we'll never know.
Oh gosh.
That's a good way to end and wrap up our live then. Leave on that note.
Okay. Thank you so much out there for watching. Hello and welcome. Next week's topic is, when is it okay to lie?
All the
and
time.
I think that this can mean many things in the coaching seat, in the client seat, in the.
We're not exactly sure ourselves since we haven't done the research, so we will find out.
Oh yeah.
We come back and it's like, turns out it's not okay to lie. That's it. Sorry, guys. Well, take our classes. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, comment. Take Coaching 101 and learn how to not be a victim. Nah, you don't learn that in Coaching 101. You learn how to coach people who are victims. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Once again, this is brought to you by Certified Life Coach Institute. We're an ICF accredited school who certifies our life coaches in 3-day online intensive courses. In addition to other podcast episodes, feel free to check us out every Tuesday at 4:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube or Facebook for our CLCI Lives, where we get together and discuss various topics that are centered around sharpening your skills so you can become a better certified life coach. For more information, feel free to visit us at certifiedlifecoachinstitute.com. Until next time, be well.